if you don't know me, I'm Niala and welcome to a series I like to call Closing Credits. Now, let's explain what this is about. If you don't know me, I am obsessed with movies. I could watch them day, night, 24 hours. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter when. There's something just so exciting about sitting down and watching a movie you've never watched and watching it all the way through. With watching a lot of movies comes a lot of movie crushes. When you have a lot of movie crushes, you go on a binge of every single movie that they've ever been in, and it's honestly the best time. I don't know about you, but imagine a rainy day, you're watching, let's say, for example, like Timothée Chalamet. You're watching Call Me By Your Name, A Complete Unknown, Dune, back to back to back. That is honestly one of my most favorite activities to ever do. With that, I decided to turn this into a series called Closing Credits. With Closing Credits, this is a series where I'm going to be watching every single movie of a certain actor, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. Not on every single movie, because if that was the case, we would be here for hours and hours and hours, and I know you probably don't have the time for that. I also don't have the time for that, so that's okay. I'm going to give you my thoughts and rank my top 5 or top 10 favorite movies. So the first episode that we are going to start off with, there is no one better to start this off than Christian Bale! For me, let me just explain. Honestly, I didn't even realize this until I started this series. I had the idea for this series. He is my first ever childhood crush. If you've watched Housewives of Castle, you understand, okay? But for every episode, I'm always going to include a bio first, kind of let you know how they got to the place that they got, what movies they're gonna be doing now, if they're in any movies, if they're still acting, and within the rankings, I'm going to give rankings within those rankings. The way that I decided to rank these are certain criteria, and within that criteria they have their own ratings. 50% is going to be actor performance. This includes not just what I thought of their acting performance overall, but this is talking about not just love interest, the chemistry just with other actors and characters in the movie. 30% of it is overall plot and just the aesthetic of the movie. So we're talking writing, we're talking quality of the movie, we're talking how good is the cinematography, does it have a message, how is the symbolism in it, and also just the writing, because dialogue is so important to me. And then the next 10% is how often / if I'd rewatch. It's such a small percentage because not all movies I want to rewatch all the time, but that doesn't mean that I have any less love for them for other movies that I want to rewatch. The last 10% is looks. So how attracted am I to the character? It doesn't always have to be that way, which is why it's such a small percentage, because it can be a part of it, but sometimes it isn't, and that's okay. Now, before we get into any of this, I just want to give 2 really big disclaimers. The ranking is simply my opinion. I love hearing anybody's opinion. This does not at all define how good the movie is. It's just what I thought of the movie and which ones were my personal favorite. For this one specifically, I'm not going to include American Psycho, and I'm not going to include the Dark Knight trilogy. Hear me out, guys. Those 2 pieces of work are amazing, and it's clear that it belongs at the top because they're just masterpieces. If you've watched the movies, you understand. They're just iconic. For this, I wanted to talk about the more underrated movies, and not all of them are underrated, but I just want to talk about movies that are less talked about with Christian Bale. With that being said, let's get into it. So let me tell you a little bit about Christian Bale. He is English American. Technically, he was born in Wales. He's lived and moved around so much since he was a kid. He even lived in Portugal at one point. So he is English American because he did eventually, after living in Portugal, ended up settling in Bournemouth. The way that he got his start is actually through his sister. His sister was taking acting classes. He took one acting class at this place that was near his house, and he actually landed the role in this West End play in 1984 called The Nerd, and that was with Rowan Atkinson. And again, he's never really had any formal training at this age. He was surviving off of just vibes, and he landed this role. After he landed the role in the play The Nerd, he actually landed a minor TV role in a TV movie called Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna, which starred Amy Irving. If you don't know Amy Irving, she was married to Steven Spielberg at the time, and that's actually how he got the audition for Empire of the Sun, which is his first ever feature film leading role at 13 years old. Some of his most known movies are American Psycho, he played Batman, The Machinist, American Hustle, and The Fighter. The Fighter he actually won an Oscar for. Currently, he's actually gonna be in a movie that's being released September 26, 2025 called The Bride. Netflix is releasing a movie called Frankenstein, which is Guillermo del Toro's, which is with like Oscar Isaac, and I also believe Jacob Elordi is gonna be in it. That movie is coming out on Netflix. Then there's Maggie Gyllenhaal's movie about Frankenstein, which is called The Bride. It's going to be starring Christian Bale as Frankenstein. Now we're gonna get into the rankings. Number 10, Empire of the Sun. Empire of the Sun is about this boy named Jim Graham, who was living like an upper middle class life in Shanghai. This was right around like Japan's invasion of China during World War II. As his family was trying to evacuate the city, he ends up getting separated from both his mom and his dad. The mom and Jamie get separated from their dad. Somehow, Jamie gets separated from his mom, so he is left to literally survive on his own. Jamie experiences all kinds of hardships of being a child in the middle of a war, even becoming a POW, which means prisoner of war, at an internment camp at one point. This is actually based on a novel that was written by the real Jamie Graham. It is based on a true story. Let's just get into it. We're gonna talk about acting performance first. I can't dote on Christian enough for this. The role that he plays, Jamie, he goes through such complex emotions and experiences that is so hard to even convey for an adult, let alone a child. The kid had gifts. His performance absolutely blew me away, and for that, I definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. For the overall plot and aesthetic, did I expect anything less of Spielberg? Absolutely not. Honestly, in my opinion, this is one of his best and most underrated movies because it's definitely not talked about. All of his movies are amazing, that some movies can get pushed under the rug, and I feel like this is one of those movies that was pushed under the rug. Cinematography, absolutely beautiful. Some shots literally belong in museums. They are just absolute masterpieces. The only thing, it is a little long. For that, I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. How often / if I rewatch it? We're gonna give this like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It honestly heavily depends on the mood that I'm in. It does drag on a little bit depending on how patient you can be. If I did rewatch it, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I could stick all the way through it. I feel like it's just one of those type of movies that I rewatch every like 1 or 2 years. It's one of those movies that you appreciate it the less that you watch it. I think my last thoughts that I want to leave with this, it depicted such a beautifully tragic journey of a child being forced to mature because of war. There was one specific relationship that was explored that I thought depicted the beauty of friendship and respect. This one specific relationship was probably my favorite thing about the entire movie. It was so wholesome. You just have to watch the movie to figure it out. Okay. Number 9, Out of the Furnace. This movie was an interesting one. This is a movie that I had never ever heard of, but it's crazy because this is like a star-studded cast. We're talking Christian Bale, Zoe Saldana, Casey Affleck, Woody Harrelson, Willem Dafoe, and then Forest Whitaker. The fact that I hadn't heard of it is just crazy. Out of the Furnace follows Christian Bale's character, Russell Bays. He works as a Pennsylvania steel mill worker, and he's on a search to find his missing brother, who is Casey Affleck. He is extremely troubled and traumatized after coming back from fighting in the Iraq War. Just gets caught up in bare knuckle fighting and comes across this really dangerous drug dealer who lives in New Jersey through a bar owner who is Willem Dafoe. They both disappear shortly after they go to meet with him. Let me just tell you, acting performance, we're gonna see a lot of 5 out of 5s. This is another 5 out of 5. This is one of Christian's most complex, more quiet characters. Russell is just so down to earth and so humble, and it's a complete 180 because this is after The Dark Knight Rises. Bruce Wayne is like a out there character character. He is a comic character. He's an iconic character. And I found it incredibly impressive, honestly, especially because, in my opinion, I just feel like it's way harder to portray like just a normal human being who doesn't speak much and who goes through like the natural ups and downs of life than say like a villain or like a character who is just so out of the box. Not to say that that's not hard. I'm just saying it is a completely different world. It's difficult to do both really well. And he is one of those people who just nails it every single time. So many unfortunate things happen to him, and through it all, except maybe like 2 separate times, he honestly tends to keep it to himself. There's this one scene, why am I about to cry just thinking about it? There's this one scene on a bridge with him and Zoe. Zoe plays his like love interest in the movie. There's this one scene of them on a bridge. There's stuff being said, there's dialogue, but a lot of it is what isn't said. This is what I'm talking about with how important it is for chemistry with other actors slash characters. This scene, Oscar worthy. I was sobbing with them, and it wasn't even through what was said, it was what wasn't said. So for that, I'm giving that a 5 out of 5. Moving into overall plot and aesthetic, the writing, excellent. The plot, captivating. What I loved about it is it kicks right off. The beginning of the movie just lets you know it is not messing around. It is a very serious movie. Also, what I loved about it is it explores so many different dynamics of family and what it's like to lose them. The cinematography is literally just unmatched. I felt like the lighting felt so ominous, and I also felt like it evolved as we got deeper into the movie. So it kind of starts as like really bright, and it's a lot more sunny. The more you go into the movie, the darker it feels. And you kind of feel that as an audience member, you kind of feel like really anxious and really suspenseful. For that, I give that 4 out of 5 stars. If we're talking about how often I rewatch, I'm gonna give that 3 out of 5 stars. It's not my typical movie that I rewatch several times, but honestly, I'd heavily recommend it to somebody who just enjoys movies. Also, someone who like loves a good revenge movie. I feel like dads would love the movie a lot. My dad definitely did. It's definitely not a feel-good movie. So if you're not that type of person, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But for those who love movies and for those who love a good revenge movie, definitely recommend it. Okay, looks. Oh man. Oh man. Listen, I don't know if I'm like now into like long-haired, bearded men or if it's just Christian Bale. He also is just so soft-spoken, and I love that. I love that about men. And he's like a man in love, and he's big, and he's tall, and he's strong. I melt every time. Number 8, Ford versus Ferrari. This is directed by James Mangold. Let's start off with that. He is one of my favorite. Actually, he is my favorite director of all time. And this is another star-studded cast. You have Christian Bale, Matt Damon, Katrina Balfe, Jon Bernthal, Tracy Letts, Josh Lucas, who is also in American Psycho with him. And also we have Noah Jupe. And it is a James Mangold movie. He's going to have stars in his movie every single time. This story follows Carroll Shelby, who's the owner of Shelby American and 1959 Le Mans champion. Le Mans is a 24-hour race in France. It is a huge race. And it also follows Ken Miles, who is Christian Bale. He is an English race car driver and a mechanical engineer who gets angered very easily. This man's temper is like through the roof. Like, it's not there. Do not mess with him because he will blow a gasket. I'm sorry. And it follows them as they develop this new race car for Ford Motor Company that can be the winner of Le Mans, which has been Ferrari over the last several years. Going into acting performance, this man puts his whole ussy into literally every single film that he does, and I'm here for it. I feel like Ken Miles was just one of those roles that Christian like enjoyed playing so much because it's just so similar to his personality. I think like humor wise, and I loved watching him and Matt together. They were both phenomenal. Overall plot and aesthetic is a solid 5 out of 5. Hear me when I say a Mangold movie will never not be a 5 out of 5. I already knew it was going to be amazing. I remembered how much praise it got when it had come out. I was still somehow blown away. Personally, I feel like this is one of the best sports movies that I've ever watched, and I watched a lot of sports movies. I think it had the perfect amount of laughs and tears. Like, it was both equally sad as it was funny and happy and just entertaining. And I'm out here knowing absolutely nothing about racing, but I've never been so locked in to a race. I literally got emotionally invested. By the end of the race, like I was literally tearing up with the results and what had happened. And that's like what I love about Mangold movies, is because it feels so intimate and it feels like you're right there with the characters in the movie, just watching everything that they're going through. One of the things that I loved most and something that I got emotionally invested in was Ken and Carol's friendship. The writing was absolutely fantastic and it flowed so well and developed their friendship so well. If I could name a perfect movie, this would definitely be considered. How often / if I'd rewatch, I'm gonna give that like literally a 6 stars out of 5. I can't rave about this movie enough, nor can I rewatch it enough. Tell me why. I had a phase where if I was doing chores, watching a movie while I was eating, getting ready for bed, if I was trying to fall asleep, this movie was on. I could literally rewatch this movie anytime. It's so good. When we're talking about how attracted I am to Ken, people, you're gonna have to hear me out. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 stars. Listen, I have days where I'm fully in it, and then there's days where I feel like he gives like old English dad. I don't necessarily know how to describe it, and that's not a bad thing. I just don't know if it's exactly like my cup of tea. Number 7, Hostiles. I don't know what it is about Scott Cooper's movies and like me never hearing about them, because they are literally some of the best movies that I've just objectively ever seen, and his movies are like always like star-studded cast. This one had Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, Wes Studi, Q'orianka Kilcher. Christian Bale was actually in The New World with Q'orianka, and surprise, surprise, Laurie's son, Timothy Chalamet. I was shocked to see that they were in the same movie. I was like, oh, so this was for me. This was for me. We gotta get into business. Let me tell you what this movie is about. This is set in 1892 and it follows Captain Joseph J. Blocker, who was a veteran of the Native American Wars, and his mission is to escort a Cheyenne war chief, Chief Yellowhawk, who is dying, and his family back to their home in Montana. Along the way, they meet Rosalie Quaid, who has just recently lost everything. Her family, her house, everything, and she does join the group after Joseph J. Blocker convinces her to. By the end of this movie, a lot will be lost, and they go through a lot of dangers, and this includes dealing with their own hate and their prejudice, which is such an important part of this movie. Going straight into ratings and reasonings, acting performance, again, not only is this like a 5 out of 5, this is like an 100 out of 5 stars, because acting wise, this is one of my favorite Christian Bale performances of all time. It's very similar to Russell, and if you've ever watched The Pale Blue Eye, it's also very similar to that character. Blocker is just very quiet. He isn't very outspoken, but mess with him and who he cares about, and he will you up.
When Yellowhawk and his dog soldiers got done with them, and there wasn't a... Don't you dare laugh.
Blocker often holds in his feelings, so when you see him break down, it genuinely felt like my heart was being ripped into. 2 things I loved was his character arc and his journey to unlearn all of his own hate and prejudice towards Native Americans, seeing the relationship develop between him and Rosalie's character, and also him and Chief Yellowhawk. There are 2 separate relationships. Each one was so important to his development as a person. It was just so beautiful to see. Overall plot and aesthetic, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. And I just want to start by saying the cinematography and the directing were absolutely brilliant, and the plot was heartbreaking and captivating. Right off the bat, you learn just how ruthless the environment was back then. But I will say the movie does feel like a little bit slow at times. For someone who like may have difficulty just like sitting through a movie, it may be difficult to like keep your attention, so I will say that. But for me, I personally couldn't look away. Like, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. But a big part of that was the performance of the actors, not necessarily the writing. Let me just say, the ending of this movie is one of the most beautifully written endings I have literally ever seen in my life. I was sitting for a good few minutes just like reflecting on what I had just watched. I love a good ending that makes me like think about life, and that was that ending. For the way that the movie ended up, I was very satisfied with the ending. When we're talking about how often / like if I rewatch, I'm gonna give that 2.5 out of 5 stars. This one's a little bit interesting because I'd probably rewatch the 3 movies that I ranked below this way more than this one. Only because this movie is extremely emotionally heavy. It's not a movie I'd go for on a Friday night. It's also very gory. If you're not into that, that's very hard to see. But I would 100% watch it if I was in the mood for like just a beautifully made film. Personally, this is the movie I think everyone should watch at least once in their lifetime. How attracted am I to Joseph? I'm gonna give that like literally like 50 stars out of 5. Immediate smash. I mean, like, he's emotionally unavailable. Would he burn the world for like his lover? Check. Am I feeling the mustache and the beard? Absolutely. If you don't get it, that's perfectly fine for me. It's more for me. So I'm really not complaining. Number 6, The Prestige. This one, also iconic. It's directed by Christopher Nolan. This is actually co-written with his brother, Jonathan Nolan. And some of the other cast is like Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, Rebecca Hall, Andy Serkis, and even David Bowie. This movie follows Robert Angier and Alfred Borden in their rivalry as magicians in Victorian London. This rivalry escalates over this seemingly impossible teleportation illusion. That's literally all I can say. It is based on a 1995 novel written by Christopher Priest. Let's just get right into it. Acting performance, I'm gonna give it a solid 5 out of 5 again. I will say this role felt so playful for me, but not in the same way as like American Hustle and Ford versus Ferrari. And this sounds harsh. I feel like this is one of the few movies where I feel like he doesn't solely stand out. There's so many components in the movie that made it amazing. Not just the plot, not just the aesthetic. Every cast member, every single actor's performance highly impressed me. That being said, I feel like his performance was still stellar as always, but I feel like this is just one of the very few times where I was more blown away by the plot and the writing and just the entire aesthetic of the movie. Going into overall plot and aesthetic, I can't even give an amount of stars. Bro, when I tell you this is one of the craziest movies I've literally ever watched. The ending had my jaw dropped to the floor. I was questioning everything about life, everyone around me. I remember when I started watching it, my mom was like, you need to keep your eye on this movie 100% of the time. You cannot look away. And she was right. Every single detail of the movie is important. I feel like people say that a lot, but for this movie specifically, since the first second of the movie, your eyes need to be glued to the screen because you will miss something. There's a huge plot twist at the end that will feel like it won't make sense, but it was right there all along. Fun fact, if you look up a list of movies that you need to see at least once in your lifetime, this is one of the movies on that list, and I 100% agree with it. It was very similar to Spielberg in a sense that I didn't expect anything less. Again, I was still blown away. This is genuinely one of the best movies I've ever watched in my life, and I'm definitely not saying that lightly. How often / if I were to watch this movie, I'd probably give this like a 4 out of 5. It's just one of those movies that like I would want to rewatch to just like relive the sheer like mind of this movie, but it wouldn't necessarily be a movie that I'd go to when I want to watch a movie with friends on a Friday night. It also is pretty long. It's a movie you'd have to be on the edge of your seat for. If it's a random Friday night or a Saturday night, that's not the type of movie that I usually go for. I like to go for like a feel-good movie. But again, I will say it is a movie that I think everybody should see at least once in their lives. Can we please hold space for Alfred Borden? Please. That man is so funny. There's these like specific shots of him in the movie where I'm just like, how do you not immediately pounce right then and there? Be honest. I'm like sticking the microphone in your face. Like that's how I feel. And without spoiling it too much, I just like to say to Sarah, I get you, girl. I want him to love me every single day too. Watch this movie. It will literally change your life, I swear. Number 5, Little Women. So it's directed by Gillian Armstrong. This cast, I think you'll have some familiar people. There's Christian Bale, Winona Ryder, Trini Alvarado, Kirsten Dunst, Claire Danes, Samantha Mathis, Susan Sarandon, Gabriel Byrne, and Mary Wicks. This movie is based on one of the most beautiful books literally of all time. It's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. To sum it up pretty quickly, if you don't know the story, this is a coming of age story of these 4 young girls. They're sisters, they're the March girls, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy and their journey through life and the ups and downs of becoming young women. Let's go straight into it. Acting performance, this is like 4.99 out of 5. I was so picky with this one because y'all, I am trying so hard not to be biased when I talk about this movie, and just Christian's performance as Laurie. If I can't help myself, I just can't help myself. I'm sorry. I am absolutely captivated, dazzled, and head over freaking heels in love with Christian's performance as Laurie. Christian as Laurie is such a complete sweetheart and an absolute cutie, at least before the time skip. I just think it captured the playful childishness and awkwardness of Laurie so perfectly. I thought it was both equally dreamy and both adorable at the same time. I will say though, I think that the only problem that I had with this Laurie, like 1994 Laurie, is probably that when the time skip happened, it was kind of giving creep. It was kind of giving a little too obsessed with the March family. It made his love for Amy seem a little bit ingenuine. I think though that had more of a problem to do with the writing rather than his portrayal of Laurie. So that's why I give it like a 4.99 out of 5. I think all in all, Christian's performance was incredibly honest, incredibly awkward and cute. I love it. Overall plot and aesthetic, we're gonna give this one like a 4 out of 5. And again, it kind of goes back into how I felt about the writings. I think what I love about it the most is that it just feels so nostalgic. I feel like there's nothing better than it being like a cold winter night. You have the fireplace on, you have your popcorn, you're under a blanket, you couldn't be more warm. This is that type of movie that kind of gives you that feeling, and also it's like the perfect movie to put on when you're feeling that way, when you're in that situation. I think the aesthetics are so stunning, and not in like a IMAX, like you're in a movie, it's like insane, that kind of thing. It just kind of feels so familiar. Everything feels so simple and it feels so real, and I think that's why the movie is so special to me personally. My only beef with this movie is I don't think that they had enough time to develop Laurie and Amy's relationship, and also Professor Bear and Joe's relationship. I think they focused so much on the growing up that they kind of rushed through them as adults, which I feel like is just as important as them as children. How often / if I'd rewatch? I watched this one. A lot.
Communication between adjoining nations shall be limited. I shall provide.
I guess you could say I watch it a lot. How attracted am I to Laurie? I don't even have much to say here. I'm just gonna have to show you. You know, that saying like true beauty transcends words. Yeah, that's Christian Bale as Laurie. Number 4, Newsies. Newsies is directed by the Kenny Ortega. If you don't know Kenny Ortega, yes you do. He directed and choreographed High School Musical, and he also directed and choreographed Descendants. Some other cast members are David Moscow, Bill Pullman, Max Casella, Robert Duvall, and also Anne Margaret. This is loosely based on the New York City newsboys strike of 1899, with songs by Alan Menken and with lyrics by Jack Feldman, and the underscore is by JAC. This follows a boy named Jack Kelly who lives in a group home for boys and makes a living being a newsie. He meets this boy named David and his little brother Les, who actually become newsies due to their father being fired for having an injury, and Kelly teaches them the ways of being a newsie. They eventually lead a New York-wide strike against the top New York news publishers like Joseph Pulitzer after he raises the cost for newsies to purchase newspapers. That is so wrong. All right, let's get into the ratings and reasoning. So acting performance, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. And what I mean is, I think it takes so much to be in a musical, especially if you've never been in it before. It can be a very hard thing to take on, and it's hard to take that on and make it look effortless, let alone just good. And I think Christian's acting is so strong that you kind of overlook the fact that he isn't maybe the best singer. Don't get me wrong, like I still loved his voice. He just blew me away with his acting performance alone. I didn't even know that Christian could dance, by the way. Something I left out in the bio is that he took ballet, I believe, when he was younger. I was still like highly impressed by just the sheer dedication of all the actors, of the entire cast, to do what they did. I just love this movie so much. Overall plot and aesthetic, we're gonna give this a 5 out of 5. This movie may not be like the most cinematic movie you've literally ever seen, but it is a perfect movie for all ages, and it's like a go-to throwback movie. To me, it was actually funny. I don't know about you, but I was genuinely laughing at some parts. It was genuinely funny. I think the kids in the movie are extremely talented. The songs are bangers. My only beef with it is I feel like it was like a short movie. Maybe that's like my own beef that I have to deal with. Like I just wish it was longer. That's low-key my only beef with it. Okay, how often / if I rewatch? This one probably gets like 5,000 stars out of 5. Do I rewatch Newsies?
This is David.
Look at me, I'm the king of New York.
Hey, you Jack, how'd you sleep? On me back much. Hey, you all hear that? I asked Jack how'd he sleep and he said on me back. You could say that. Jack Kelly. How do I explain Jack Kelly? My heart skips a freaking beat. Literally every time I see an edit of him, every time I see a picture of him, my heart skips a freaking beat. 95% of the time I'm thinking about Jack Kelly. That's how much I love him. Number 10, 3:10 to Yuma. Oops. Number 3, 3:10 to Yuma. Tell me why I messed that up. How did I get there? This one is another iconic movie directed by the James Mangold. Some other cast members are Russell Crowe, Peter Fonda, Ben Foster, Vanessa Shaw, my queen from Hocus Pocus, and Logan Lerman. He's another one on my list that I love. This one is actually a remake of the 1957 film, which was actually based on a short story by Elmer Leonard. It's about a rancher named Dan Evans. Man is literally going broke. He is tasked with escorting a famous outlaw, Ben Wade, who is played by Russell Crowe, to a train that will bring him to jail. That is like the short and sweet description of this movie because a lot happens. Acting performance, I definitely give this, again, a solid 5 out of 5. Like, how do I even begin with this performance? It's probably one of my favorite performances of his that I've seen. I think Westerns are always like a hit or miss for me. I think they're amazing, they're just not exactly my cup of tea. But Christian's performance in this movie blew me away. He kept my attention the entire time. His character deals with a lot of guilt and shame for himself. His need to prove to himself and, like, most importantly his son was something that I thought was like extremely touching. I think throughout the movie, at least for me, you really like learn to empathize with Dan and you find yourself like rooting for him in the end. Like you really want him to get Ben Wade onto this train just so that he can prove himself and show that he is worth who he is. Overall plot and aesthetic, I'm gonna give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It really comes down to probably the fact that I'm not that into Westerns. I think Westerns have a lot of action, which I'm not really into, like a lot of action in movies and stuff. So that was probably what went into that. But I would say we're back again with another James Mangold film. It's perfect. I feel like this Western felt so captivating for me. I don't usually watch Westerns, but this one felt like a tribute to like the old Hollywood classic Western films. It felt so respectful to that. And I actually watched the behind the scenes and I saw they shot on location and they had like some of the coolest stunts. They tried to make this movie as like real as possible. I think it definitely paid off when the final movie came out. For me, what kept me engaged was the characters and how they were related to each other and how their relationships to each other developed throughout the film, especially Dan Evans and Ben Wade, how they became strangers and then eventually like like they become friends. Watching that relationship was like one of the most important plot points of the entire movie. With that was his relationship with his son, who is Logan Lerman. By the way, when I found out that Logan Lerman was in this movie, I freaked the F out because this was around the time that he was in like Percy Jackson. So this was a huge moment for me. I feel like when you combine all of that with the stunning cinematography and the unbelievable effort that was put into the setting and into the stunts, I would give this like a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. How often / if I rewatch the movie, I would give this like a 3 out of 5 stars. And I'm just being honest, like I probably, as much as I love the movie, I would probably watch this like once or twice a year. It is feeling like very slow at times. I feel like if I watched it too much, it would become a little old to me. If it was a movie that I hadn't seen in a while, I would really, really appreciate it. Dan, man. Dan. What can I do just for one chance? Guys, I love long hair on men. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I loved Twilight when I was younger. Let's start off with that. Second, Dan is like the strong and resilient type. Like he's gonna do anything and everything for his family. He has my whole heart. Honestly, I would simply be incapable of acting any type of normal around this man. Number 2, Howl's Moving Castle. Let's just get straight into this one. This one is directed by the one and only Hayao Miyazaki. Some of the other voice actors are Emily Mortimer, Lauren Bacall, Gene Simmons, Billy Crystal, and Josh Hutcherson. This story follows a young girl with literally the biggest self-esteem issues I have ever seen. Her name is Sophie. She goes into the waste to find a way to reverse the spell that was put on her by the Witch of the Waste that turned her into an old woman. While in the waste, she actually stumbles across the infamous Playboy wizard, Howl, and joins him in his fight against the king and his followers. This is loosely based on the 1986 novel by Diane Wynne Jones. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I would say it's very, very, very loosely because I've heard a lot of differences between the book and the movie, and I've heard it's very, very different. So again, loosely based. Acting performance, 5 out of 5. This is the movie where I actually first discovered Christian, and let me just tell you, it is 100% possible to fall in love with the voice.
That's my girl. Calcifer. You're being so obedient. Not just anybody can do that.
I really did love Christian's performance. I think my view of his performance is very similar to my view of his performance in The Prestige. His performance was just like a very small part of why I loved this movie, why I fell in love with it in the first place. Voice acting is a very hard thing to do, and I think that Christian did a phenomenal job at creating the voice of the character and at creating a specific voice for Howl, matching the animatedness, especially when he's like overly dramatic or like childish. I think he did a really great job at that. Again, it's a very small part of why I'm in love with this movie, and let's go straight into it. Overall plot and aesthetic is literally out of the park, stars out of 5. This is one of the best movies I've literally ever watched. I've grown up with it since I was little. Studio Ghibli movies are incredibly crafted and incredibly detailed. The Royal City's design alone belongs in a museum. Studio Ghibli movies have been a staple for aesthetic movies, and understandably so. I don't think I've ever mentioned this at all in any of the other movies in the past, but the music is such an important part to why I love this movie too. The movie was composed by the one and only Joe Hisaishi. Just the way that he evokes a type of feeling in just 4 to 8 notes says a lot about his genius. Plot-wise, it hooks you in from the beginning and establishes not just a great sense of like the world, but also the main character, Sophie. Like you totally understand who she is as a person. And it's not just a love story between Sophie and Howl. It's like a story about family, self-acceptance, self-love, and also forgiveness as well. Forgiveness is a huge part of the movie. I just don't think there will ever be another movie that is like this one. This movie speaks to all ages, and I think it's a perfect movie for that. I probably rewatch this movie once a week or once every other week, so literally 2 to 4 times a month. Like that's how much I watch this movie. Having it on in the background is a lot of the times when I watch it. Having it on in the background or like while I'm trying to sleep brings me a lot of like comfort and joy. My sisters and I have watched it so many times growing up. We could probably quote a good 75% of the movie. That's how much we rewatch it and how much we love it. How attracted am I to Howl? Let's talk about it. Looks, 10. Voice, 10 million. Personality, we're talking like an 8, but that's okay because his looks and his voice totally overpower that for me, honestly. I feel like there's not much I can say without like spoiling it, but I feel like Hal is very loyal, which is automatically a 10. Even though he's loyal and he's head over heels in love with somebody, he never outwardly shows it. I just love men like that. Howell is my first crush as a kid, so I will say I'm definitely biased. He is my blueprint. Number 1, Flowers of War. This one is directed by Zhang Yimou. I don't want to mispronounce any of the other cast members, so I'm going to leave that in the corner below so you can see their names. This one is based on a novella actually by Gailing Yan, which is called The 13 Flowers of Nanjing. That was actually inspired by a diary of Minnie Vautrin, who is a Christian missionary who cared for and protected at least 10,000 Chinese refugees during the Nanjing massacre that happened during 1937. This is during the 1937 Nanjing massacre. A group of escapees, including an American mortician, take sanctuary in this Western church and fight to survive against the Japanese military. I'm just gonna get straight into it. I just want to give this a 10 out of 10 for acting performance for Christian. I was blown away by Christian's performance in this. John Miller starts off as this like seemingly arrogant guy who like clearly likes to drink. He has a clear problem with drinking, but as the movie goes on, you see how deeply empathetic and caring he is, how there is just so much more to him. The sheer emotion that Christian displayed in this movie ripped me apart. It just ripped my heart into. I mean, this is another side of Christian that you don't really get to see. The romantic side as well, as there is a love story between him and Nini's character, Yumo. Their love story is truly one of the most beautifully tragic love stories I've ever watched. I mean, arguably, this one was even sadder than Romeo and Juliet. I was sobbing by the end of it. Also, Christian did a great job at displaying John's struggle with keeping everything and everyone together. I mean, he was the bridge of the movie and the only way out. He displayed this care for everyone, especially the children, so authentically, and that's honestly what made this movie 1,000 times more painful. The overall plot and aesthetic ripped my heart in 2 out of 5 stars, like infinity out of 5 stars. This is one of, if not the most saddest movie I've literally ever watched in my life, guys. Like, it is such a gut-wrenching movie. The fact that it's based on and set during a true event made it 1,000 times more painful. This is based on true events. It was hard. I mean, I was sitting on my bedroom floor for like 15 to 20 minutes after the movie, just sobbing on and off. And even before that, 35 minutes into the movie, I was crying and crying for the rest of the movie, which was like a good hour and 45 minutes after that. This movie just stays with you. I actually sent my best friend like a voice memo to like explain the movie to her because I needed to talk about this movie to someone, and everybody I knew had never really watched the movie, so I had to explain it to someone. Just telling her the plot literally had me crying again. It's not just a love story. This is a story about family and respect and sacrifice and loss, and I think the movie keeps you engaged from beginning to end. It's a movie that will stay with me forever. How often / if I rewatch, I'm going to give this one a solid 1 out of 5. And this is only due to the sheer heaviness in content. It's not a movie I would watch multiple times. It could be a very triggering movie. It's very emotionally heavy. It has depictions of extreme violence, SA, rape, CSA, and also mentions of self-exit with one attempt. Those are extremely triggering topics, and I wouldn't recommend the movie unless you are in like a stable mindset, because watching those depictions in the movie could be extremely triggering, and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable at all. That being said, I definitely do not regret watching this movie. It is one of the most beautifully gut-wrenching movies I've ever watched. I will probably think about this movie until the day that I die. Okay, when we talk about John Miller, at first, like, I found him really arrogant and low-key a little bit cringy. There were just moments where I was like, sir, you should not be acting like that. Like, what are you doing? You look like a fool right now. Especially with the way that he acted with Yumo, I was just like, I was feeling secondhand embarrassment for him. As the movie went on, you see how gentle he is and how caring he is. The love he has for Yumo, like, literally makes me want to cry, guys. Just the love that he has for Yumo alone. I just need one chance with him. Just one night. Please! Also, let's just say I liked it. And that is my top 10. That concludes the very first episode of Closing Credits. I really can't wait to make more. I already have an idea of who I'm gonna do next, so I'm really excited to keep on doing that. Please let me know your thoughts. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments, if you agree, if you disagree. I love hearing all opinions. I really hope you guys liked this video. I will see you guys next time, and I hope you have a good night, or a good morning, or a good afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you have a good one.